Kamito was basically that typical goofy high school student, except for one detail. He carried within himself the power of the Demon King himself, and, as if that wasn't enough, he had max-level charisma, the type that attracts more girls than any other guy in school. One fine day, while walking carefree through a forest, he stumbled upon a rather unusual scene. A red-haired girl taking a bath outdoors, as if that was the most normal thing in the world. Kamito tried to explain, swearing he had no bad intentions, but the girl freaked out instantly, screamed pervert, and without thinking twice, summoned her first spirit, a magic whip, and began spinning it around uncontrollably like a beginner player who doesn't know what they're doing. Kamito, trying to stay calm, even asked her to stop with that madness, but in the middle of the outburst, she struck a blow on a tree. Result, the tree fell right in her direction, and of course our protagonist went full hero mode and jumped to save her. The universe decided to reward his act of courage with a sensation, let's say very soft and comfortable, landing right in his hand. When she realized exactly where his hand was, the girl turned red with rage, slapped Kamito so hard he passed out instantly, and, to top it off, tied him up completely with her whip before dressing in the uniform of the Restia Spirit Academy. When Kamito woke up still a bit dizzy, he wasted no time and started teasing Claire, yes, we discover the redhead's name, about her somewhat eccentric style. Right after, he revealed that he was there on behalf of the school's very own headmistress, Lady Greyworth. Claire was outraged. After all, how could a boy be in the academy? That school was exclusive to girls, since only they could form contracts with spirits. Kamito, half mocking, replied, "Ask the crazy old hag, she'll answer you." He also commented that he didn't expect the school grounds to be so gigantic, and that he even got lost on the way while trying to find Greyworth, the legendary headmistress who, by the way, was responsible for defeating the Demon King Solomon, who, according to legends, was still sealed somewhere inside the academy itself. The two then went together to the sanctuary, where that seal was kept. Claire broke the seal on the door without hesitation and entered confidently with Kamito right behind her. Inside, they found a pedestal holding a sacred sword. Claire approached, ready to perform the contract ritual with the sword spirit. She pulled the sword, and for a moment, it seemed everything would work. But then, out of nowhere, the spirit rejected her, and worse, started attacking. In reflex, Kamito saved Claire by pushing her away from the attack. But the redhead wasn't the type to give up easily. She stood up, faced the spirit, and said, "If you don't want to form a contract willingly, then I'll force you." She pulled out her whip and summoned her spirit, a small fire cat named Scarlet. The problem: the kitten tried to fight the sword and, as expected, got slashed instantly. The sword then lunged straight at Claire. Once again, Kamito jumped into the mess, but this time, instead of just pushing her, he extended his hand toward the sword and, to everyone's surprise, managed to form a contract with the spirit. Claire's jaw dropped. Kamito then dropped a bomb. He knew that, in history, there had only ever been one man who managed to form contracts with spirits. Yes, Demon King Solomon, the guy who nearly dragged the entire world into ruin. Claire, completely outraged at having lost the spirit to Kamito, crossed her arms and declared, "Then from now on you are my spirit because you stole mine." And without even giving him a chance to reply, she tied him up again with her whip and dragged him back to the academy. "You pervert, now how am I supposed to deal with you?" she grumbled, trying to figure out what to do with that lunatic. But Kamito, quick as ever, took advantage of a slip, freed himself, and fled. Wandering through the corridors, he ended up reaching the headmistress's office. Just as he was about to open the door, he heard a girl on the other side shouting furiously that she would never accept the enrollment of a boy in that academy for girls only. And out of nowhere, BAM! The door swung open right into his face, knocking Kamito to the floor. A blue-haired girl jumped over him, sword in hand, and shouted, "I swear I'll slice you into sashimi, you pervert!" That's when the headmistress appeared behind her and said, "Calm down, Ellis. Put that sword away, girl." The girl, who we now know is named Ellis, obeyed, but kept glaring at Kamito. He, shameless as ever, replied to the headmistress, "Hey, old witch, long time no see." The headmistress ignored the comment and ordered Ellis to stand guard in the room. Then she explained that Ellis was actually the captain of the Sylphid Knights, responsible for keeping order at the school. Soon after, Greyworth asked about the spirit seal on his hand. Kamito shrugged and replied, "It just happened, duh." When she brought up his ghost, Kamito got irritated. "She's not a ghost," he retorted seriously. The headmistress then cut to the chase. She revealed she knew Kamito's past, that he once had a spirit partner who, for some reason, had been separated from him, and she dangled the bait. "If you want to know where she is, you'll have to enroll here as a student." After that, Ellis was tasked with giving Kamito a tour of the school. During the walk, she laid down a very strict rule: never, ever dare to get close to the girls' bathroom. Then she took him to his dorm, which was actually a tiny shack next to the horse stables. "Oh, and you'll be sharing the bathroom with the horses, okay?" As if that wasn't enough, Ellis informed Kamito that he had been placed in Raven class, known as the nest of the school's problem students. When Ellis left, guess who showed up? Claire. And automatically, She whipped out her whip and tied Kamito up again. "What were you doing with that captain, huh?" she asked suspiciously. Kamito explained that she was just showing him around the school, since he was now officially a student there. Claire switched the subject. "Fine, but about that sword spirit? You stole it from me, so now you're my spirit, got it?" Kamito, with that mocking grin, replied, "Well, if you want to form a contract with a human spirit, you know there's a specific little way to do it, right?" he said with a wink, hinting that he meant a kiss. Immediately, Claire turned bright red, almost crying from embarrassment. Before things could heat up even more, Professor Freya showed up, grabbed Kamito by the arm, and dragged him to class to introduce himself officially. There, he met Rinslet, a girl who used ice magic, and surprised, she immediately started fighting with Claire, arguing over who would turn Kamito into their personal slave. Yes, seriously. In the middle of the chaos, a girl dressed as a maid came running in, desperate, begging Rinslet to stop before the teacher freaked out. But she tripped, rolled down the stairs, and, of course, Kamito reflexively jumped to catch her and, well, let's just say he got a privileged view of paradise during the rescue. That same night, Kamito kept thinking about Greyworth's words. She wanted him to participate in the Blade Dance, a tournament where the world's best spirit sword dancers compete. As an incentive, she mentioned that the legendary warrior Ren Ashbel would be participating this year, and that she would bring a humanoid dark spirit, implying that maybe it was Restia, his former partner. He also remembered his talk with Professor Freya. She explained that the Blade Dance wasn't just a tournament, but an event in honor of the 5 great elemental lords, the Academy girls, who came from noble families, trained to represent their countries. Whoever won would not only receive the blessing of the lords, but also guarantee years of prosperity for their nation. Freya then stared at Kamito and asked, "And you? Why do you want to fight in this tournament?" And he, in true Kamito style, replied, "Oh, because the old hag told me to. I lost count of how many times she's asked already." Later that night, Rinslet showed up at his shack holding a lunchbox. She brought food. "But only if you accept to become my loyal servant," she said all smug. Kamito, unfazed, slammed the door in her face. "Go look that up on Reddit, girl." But she didn't give up, knocked again and said, "Fine, I'll give it to you if you lick my foot and obey all my orders." And Kamito replied bluntly, "Slavery's been over for a long time, woman." Bam, door in her face again. Rinslet knocked again, but this time she didn't say anything. She just walked in, dropped the food on the table and muttered, "The maid made too much food so you can have it," then left, pretending she didn't care. Kamito stared, a bit confused, but smiled and said, "Look, I don't really understand your craziness, but if you want, we can be friends." Immediately, Rinslet blushed, not knowing where to hide her face. But there was no time to continue, because Claire showed up out of nowhere carrying an absurd amount of pet food, as if she were about to feed an entire pack. Her idea was also to feed Kamito, but clearly in a very wrong way. When she saw Rinslet there, Claire's eyes sparked. "Oh no, you're trying to steal my slave, is that it?" Rinslet, who didn't take insults lying down, immediately snapped back and summoned her ice elemental spirit, Fenrir. Claire didn't hold back either. She summoned her fire cat, Scarlet. And just like that, the fight was on. The two started battling in the middle of the courtyard, throwing fire and ice everywhere. In the middle of the brawl, poor Kamito's shack caught fire. Rinslet, startled, shot an ice arrow to put it out, but she ended up freezing the entire shack instead, leaving the place looking like a demolished refrigerator. Claire, of course, already threw that basic shade. "See? You still have no control at all over that little ice power of yours." "Shut up, you little fire brat," Rinslet shot back, furious. The fight didn't go any further because Ellis appeared with her knights. The moment she saw the destroyed shack, she sighed. "Seriously, I built this with so much effort. You're going to listen carefully to what your punishment will be." Meanwhile, the other knights were already being mean, mocking Rinslet. "Wow, you didn't waste any time, huh? Saw there was a boy and already wanted to snatch him up." Then they turned to Claire and sneered. "And you're not even a noble, and to top it off, your sister is a traitor." Claire's eyes filled with rage instantly. "Take that back. Let's settle this on the battlefield, you cowards." Ellis, who also didn't swallow insults, crossed her arms and said, "Deal. We'll settle this in a duel. And you, Kamito, will participate too. After all, you don't even have basic human rights here anyway," she added mockingly. So they set up the famous 3-on-3. After that, Claire, a bit embarrassed, took Kamito to sleep in her room. After all, she had pretty much destroyed the place he was supposed to stay. But let's be honest, everyone knew the real reason was that absurd charm Kamito exuded without even trying. Claire went straight to the bathroom, warning, "You clean the room, got it? And Scarlet will help you." While he was tidying things up, the fire cat lent a hand and even threw Kamito into a cooking mission. But out of nowhere, a piercing scream echoed from the bathroom. Kamito ran to see what was happening and, surprise, the water spirit from the shower had completely freaked out and attacked Claire. Kamito, on reflex, activated his famous Riz power and managed to calm the spirit down, saving the girl. But, well, he also ended up seeing a little more than he should have. Result? Claire got so furious she set the poor guy on fire, turning him into a roasted chicken instantly. Later, while they were having dinner, Kamito asked, "Claire, why this obsession with getting a strong spirit?" She looked down, grabbed a medallion, and showed it to him. On the medallion was the crest of the Elstein family, a family famous for being fire spirit specialists. Claire then revealed, "It all ended 4 years ago. My older sister Rubia caused a catastrophe in the Ordesia Empire and fled. Since then, she's been called the Queen of Calamity, and I'm her little sister." Kamito grew thoughtful. "Funny. I've also been looking for someone important to me for 3 years now. Maybe we're not so different, huh?" After that, the two went to the Astral Gate, a place inside the school that connects the human world with the world of spirits and demons. Astral Zero. There, if someone gets hurt, the body hardly suffers, but the mind can take serious damage. This particular gate led to an area full of low-level spirits, so students used it to train or settle fights. Heading toward the arena, Claire started talking about Ren Ashbel, the legendary spirit swordswoman who inspired her. She said it was by watching Ren's performance that she found the strength to continue, especially after all the chaos her sister had caused. When they arrived at the arena, Rinslet and her maid were already waiting. Claire told her about the water spirit's outburst, and Kamito got suspicious. Strange. This is only happening to Claire. It's not a defect in the device. Something's wrong here. But there was no time to think much. Ellis and her knights arrived on the scene ready for the duel. Ellis summoned her demonic wind spirit, Seamorg, which immediately went after Kamito. Kamito then tried to summon his spirit, and the sacred sword appeared. Well, almost. It showed up, but in the form of a butter knife. The other knights joined the fight, but the girls held them back away from Kamito. Rinslet knocked down the girl with the earth hammer, but was soon knocked out by the windbird. Claire was fighting against the girl with the ice sword. In the middle of the chaos, Kamito ran up to Ellis and threw the little knife. It hit the ground and broke. Ellis held back her laughter and said, "Seriously? That's your weapon?" She then transformed her spirit into a gigantic spear and charged at him. Kamito out of nowhere said, "By the way, you look really pretty like that." She blushed instantly, not knowing whether to kill him or pretend she hadn't heard. Kamito then stretched out his arm and shouted, "Wait! Something's really wrong here!" He pointed behind her, where a monstrous black cloud was forming. Everyone turned, and from within the mist emerged a high-level demonic spirit. Kamito was shocked. What's a spirit of that level doing in a low-level training area? And he quickly wondered if it had something to do with the earlier water spirit attack. Claire, on the other hand, saw it as an opportunity. "This is it! I'm going to make a contract with that thing!" She charged forward alone. Ellis even tried to help, and Claire unleashed a rain of fire attacks using Scarlet. But the demon didn't even flinch. On the contrary, it grinned wide and lunged at her, intent on turning her into a snack. Cornered, Claire began to cry desperately, calling for her sister. The demon advanced, but Scarlet, in a courageous act, jumped in front to protect Claire, and was simply swallowed. Claire snapped, collapsed to the ground crying, not knowing what to do. Seeing that, Kamito took a deep breath and decided, "Enough, it's my turn." He raised his hand and called for the sword spirit. "Listen to me. Show your true form. Lend me your power now." The sword obeyed. Kamito gripped the sacred blade, which transformed into a colossal sword, and with a single strike, cut the demon in half, shouting, "I won't lose to trash like this." After the battle, Claire approached him with tears in her eyes and whispered, Why didn't you save Scarlet?" But she quickly realized the fault was hers. She was weak. She cried, hugging her knees. Kamito, on the other hand, collapsed. He fell to the ground unconscious. The sword spirit had drained so much energy from him that it was like he'd been run over by a truck. While sleeping, he dreamed of his past, of that moment when he was named the Demon King's successor by a bizarre organization. And he also remembered when he first met Restia. Suddenly, he woke up a bit dazed, wondering where Claire had gone. But before he could think straight, he felt something moving under the sheets. Man, it wasn't him moving. When he pulled the sheet, surprise, there was a girl there. And not just any girl, it was the true form of his sword spirit, Est. Ellis appeared right at that moment, opened the door, and of course freaked out. "What? You're trying to grope a girl in your room?" She called Fenrir, her ice spirit, and ordered it to attack. But then she immediately told it to sit and petted it, sighing. Meanwhile, Claire was at rock bottom, feeling like the worst person in the world after losing Scarlet. She was about to leave the school in search of more power. Kamito, along with Est, noticed Claire wasn't in the room and set out across the campus looking for her. Along the way, he ran into Ellis, who immediately drew her sword. "What do you think you're doing walking around with a girl?" Est, totally unbothered, just looked and bent her sword in half. They sat down to settle things, and Kamito explained everything about Est and his spirit having a human form. Then he asked if she knew where Claire might have gone. Ellis replied that there was a contract ceremony happening in town, where students could try to contract military spirits. Rumor had it that at this ceremony, there was a legendary spirit available called Glacia, and whoever wanted to contract it would need to win a blade dance, a battle to decide who would take the prize. Kamito, of course, thought Claire was completely insane for wanting to take part in that without even having a spirit of her own. Worried about the redhead's recklessness, he asked Ellis where the ceremony was happening, and as soon as she explained, he bolted, taking Est with him. Meanwhile, Claire, in the most irresponsible way possible, ran into a very shady figure, the kind of person any mom would have warned. Never accept anything from strangers. Well, and she accepted. The guy offered a spirit that seemed super powerful, and without thinking twice, Claire made a contract with it. The detail: the spirit was simply an insane spirit named JP. On the way to the arena, Kamito kept remembering his conversation with Claire about her being the Queen of Calamity's sister. The story was heavy. Rubia, her sister, had been one of the greatest fire elementalists of the Ordesia Empire, until one day she went there, stole the most powerful fire spirit from the sanctuary, Leoheart, and vanished. That left the Fire Spirit King furious. The guy literally set the entire empire ablaze. And that's why Rubia still carries the title of Queen of Calamity. Kamito understood. Claire just wanted to become strong enough to one day face her own sister. But at the same time, he was panicking because he was sure she was about to do something stupid. And, well, she was doing exactly that. Even without a spirit, Claire entered the tournament. She went against a bunch of blade dancers and spirit monsters with some half-baked fire magic and a whip. Result, she got completely wrecked. When she got weak enough, the insane spirit she had contracted simply took over her and began draining her divine energy mercilessly. The spirit manifested in the form of a massive demon shaped like a cat, releasing a bizarre aura that corrupted all the other spirits in the arena. They went berserk and started attacking everyone, even their own masters. It was pure chaos. Kamito arrived at the scene just in time. He looked at it and thought, man, no way this is Claire's fault, right? He asked Est for help to break the curse, but she replied she couldn't access her true body because his contract seal was damaged. And yes, that had a direct connection with his contract with Restia. Kamito took a deep breath and said, all right then, I'll handle this my way. He transformed Est into her sword form and charged at the insane spirit. In the middle of the fight, he noticed something strange. That spirit wasn't just JP, it also had Scarlet, Claire's own spirit, mixed in there. He shouted to her, Claire, she didn't die! She only lost all her spiritual energy in that battle, she's alive! At that moment, the redhead's eyes shone with hope. Then I can still save her! Claire gathered her fire magic and summoned a small flame. Kamito looked at it and thought, seriously, girl? What are you gonna do with that tiny thing against this giant beast? But to his surprise, Claire simply turned the flame on her own hand, burning herself. That pain woke Scarlet up, who returned to normal, and with her restored, the other spirits also calmed down and returned to the spirit realm. As soon as everything settled, Kamito turned to Claire and asked, all right, now tell me, where did you get that insane spirit from? She, a bit embarrassed, answered, it was from a black-haired girl. And as if it were a movie scene, right then a black-haired girl descended from the sky right in front of them. Kamito's eyes widened. No, it can't be! Yes, it was her. Restia, Kamito's former partner, the one responsible for everything that had happened so far. The water spirit's outburst, the appearance of that demon in the previous fight, and now the insane spirit. Kamito, shaken, asked, why? Why are you doing this? She replied with that provocative look. Because I waited 3 years for you. And deep down, you know this is what you wanted. And to make the situation even tenser, Restia simply went full crazy. She used her dark magic to awaken the most powerful spirit of the arena, Glacia, which until then had been sealed. And, while flying away, she didn't miss the chance to, let's say, show a little extra to Kamito, leaving him completely shocked. Claire then smacked him to bring him back to reality, right when Glacia broke the seal and began destroying everything. She pulled Kamito to a safe corner and asked, Who is that girl? Kamito lowered his head and answered, she's my partner, my spirit, and all of this is my fault. Claire looked into his eyes, serious, and said, that doesn't matter now. You're my spirit now, so let's focus on what matters. Taking down that monster. Kamito took a deep breath, still worried, but Claire suddenly pulled him and kissed him. This is just once, got it? And that was it. Kamito froze, unlocking full-on Sandian love mode instantly. All right, now I'll show what I'm made of. Claire stayed in the rear giving support, since Scarlet was still weak. Meanwhile, Kamito charged at Glacia holding the sword and shouting, I'll show you the true power of Ren Ashbel. He started by slashing the spirit's legs, making it collapse. Then he made an insane leap, spun in the air, and drove the blade straight into the beast's eye. Claire, watching everything, was mesmerized. Unbelievable, it's exactly the same movements as Ren Ashbel 3 years ago. But Kamito was still a bit rusty. Glacia managed to get up and tried to punch him, but Claire jumped in, blocked the strike, and opened space for Kamito to finish with a straight blow, cutting the spirit in half, just like he had done in the past. Claire kept looking at him, still wondering, "It can't be. Is he really?" When she looked again, Kamito was on the ground, unconscious, just like in the previous battle. Sometime later, he woke up again in bed, and again with Est lying under the sheets with him. And guess who walked in? Claire, who immediately pointed her weapon at him and said, "If she's your spirit, then by extension she's also mine. Understood?" Right then, Rinslet, her maid, and even Ellis arrived, all basically ready to beat Kamito up just because he was in bed with a girl. Detail, the girl was his own sword, but try explaining that to them. Meanwhile, in a fancy carriage, a purple-haired girl was approaching the academy. And she was there for a very specific reason, to find the real Ren Ashbel. Turns out this girl knew exactly who the real Ren Ashbel was, and it was none other than Kamito. When she was little, she got lost in the Astral Zero forest, being chased by a demonic spirit. She tried to summon her spirit to protect herself, but it didn't work. And when it looked like it was the end, who showed up? Kamito, holding a black sword, cutting the demon in half like a true Giga Chad. She realized right away by the way he controlled the sword and by the dark blade he carried that he was the true Ren Ashbel. Kamito made her promise to keep this secret. Then he carried her on his back all the way to the Astral Zero portal, because the girl had even lost her shoes. Oh, and that black saber was Est herself in her weapon form. The little girl even asked, "But why did you dress up as a girl to participate in the blade dance?" And Kamito answered seriously, "Because I had a wish, and I would do anything to make it come true." They said goodbye with a promise to meet again after the blade dance. Now, years later, she was arriving to fulfill that promise. Meanwhile, at the academy, Kamito woke up from yet another nap, being scolded by Claire and Scarlet, all because of Est's antics of sneaking under his sheets. It had been a week since the incident with the corrupted spirit, and Kamito finally thought he'd get to train properly with the team. The next day, Kamito and Claire went to the training field where they met Professor Freya. She warned that they would begin official training for the blade dance selection, which would take place in 2 months. Only the top 3 teams would earn a spot in the tournament. But then came the problem. To participate, each team needed 5 members. And guess what? Their team had 2. Claire, full of pride, crossed her arms and said, "Relax. Just the 2 of us are more than enough. We'll fill in with extras from around." The detail is that she forgot one small fact. Kamito is the protagonist. And guess who's the extra? Yep, her. The training battle began, and as expected, the 2 got completely crushed. They hit hard, sure, but in strategy, they were humiliated. The opposing team just stalled until they summoned a gigantic spell that made all the forest animals invade the arena, trampling them mercilessly. Result, they took a heavy loss in the school rankings. Claire, outraged, just kept grumbling, "Cowards! Those trash played dirty." Later at lunch, they were racking their brains about how they were going to get more people for the team. That's when Rinslet showed up, all elegant, arriving with her loyal maid, Carol. She sat with them out of nowhere and started dropping those very discreet hints that, maybe, she wanted to join the team. After all, it was hard to find someone up to her standards. Kamito, sharp, caught the hint instantly. Carol also gave her a little push, and he nudged Claire to take action. Claire reluctantly extended the invitation, but obviously they immediately started fighting over who would be the team leader. In the middle of the argument, they also mentioned a new student who had just transferred to the academy. And detail, she used sacred element magic, something extremely rare. Claire even considered, should we invite her too? Right then, who shows up? Ellis. "Kamito, join my team," she said straight up. Kamito even thought for a few seconds. Accepting would be a shortcut straight to the blade dance. But before he could answer, Claire already shouted, holding his arm, "No way! You're my spirit!" Blatantly, without even hiding her jealousy and abandonment issues. Kamito noticed it instantly and politely declined the offer. Ellis accepted calmly, a bit frustrated, and before leaving she said, "By the way, the headmistress is calling you to her office." Later, Kamito went to Lady Greyworth's office. That same sassy old woman as always. She looked at him, crossed her arms, and said, "Wow, how different you are from that little boy I took care of. Different for the worse," and gave that venomous chuckle, clearly referring to the humiliation he suffered in the training battle. Kamito sighed, a bit impatient. "Yeah, what can you do, right?" But Greyworth wasn't there just to mock. She looked dead serious and said, "Sometimes, Kamito, you need to learn to let certain people go," throwing in his face the name he avoided even thinking about. Kamito got irritated instantly. "Is that why you called me here?" Greyworth took a deep breath. "Actually, no. I called you to introduce someone." She clapped her hands and a super elegant purple-haired girl walked in. "This is the second princess of the Ordizia Empire, Fianna Ray Ordizia." The girl looked at Kamito and said, a bit sulky, "So, you really don't remember me?" Kamito froze. "Huh?" Greyworth arched her eyebrow, surprised at that, and then Fianna dropped the bomb. "That's right, and during my time here you'll be my bodyguards." Meanwhile, in some dark corner, Ray was meeting with an even shadier guy named Dio Inzag. They made a deal. Dio would steal sealed documents from the academy. And why? Simple. The guy wanted to prove that he, and not Kamito, was the true successor of the Demon King. Back at the office, after a lot of talking, Kamito ended up agreeing to be Fianna's bodyguard, as long as it helped raise his team's ranking for the Blade Dance. Greyworth agreed immediately, and even gave an extra mission. You'll go to the mining city to investigate why it's suffering constant earthquakes. And be careful, the city is practically a ghost town these days. There was also another revealing gossip. Fianna was known as the Lost Queen because she had been abandoned by the royal family itself. This all happened after the chaos caused by Rubia, Claire's sister, 3 years ago. To try to appease the Fire Spirit King, Fianna offered herself as a political sacrifice in her place, but no one knew exactly why she had done that. In the middle of that talk, Fianna looked straight into Kamito's eyes and said, "By the way, I know who you really are, Ren Ashbel." And she made that angry pout. "And you're still pretending you don't remember me?" Later, Kamito went with Fianna to Claire's room to explain the situation. Guess what? Claire wasn't happy at all to know that the little princess would be staying in the same room as her because, of course, Fianna needed to stay close to her spirit 24 hours a day. Fianna, noticing how Claire clung to Kamito, couldn't hold back. "So, are you two like, what?" Claire crossed her arms and replied on the spot without thinking. "He's my spirit. In fact, our contract was sealed with a kiss." At that moment, Fianna was furious. "What? Then let's settle this right now." And of course, they decided everything in the most civilized way possible, with a cooking battle. Spoiler, neither of them knew how to cook. Claire's dish looked like pure charcoal burned to the core. As for Fianna's, well, it looked like a biological weapon. She managed to poison everyone. Meanwhile, in the middle of the night, Dio broke into the Academy's secret library to steal the documents. But on the way out, he ran into Ellis and her knights. And my friend, the guy simply steamrolled them, knocking everyone down effortlessly. Just as he was about to finish Ellis, Kamito and Claire spun in to protect her. But surprise, Dio was also an elementalist. In the middle of the fight, he revealed that he knew who Kamito really was, and worse, he said, "The former Demon King Solomon controlled 72 spirits at the same time, and I am his true successor, not you, Kamito." The fight grew intense. Dio clearly had the advantage. He bested Kamito in the sword duel and dominated the field with his many spirits. But suddenly, Fianna, in full meme style, picked up a spirit stone from the ground and threw it at him. Result, it didn't even scratch. Dio just looked annoyed and launched an energy beam straight at Fianna, who froze in fear. Then he ran away, and Fianna ended up fainting. The next day, she woke up in bed and Kamito came to check on her. There, Fianna also revealed the truth about the Bloodstone. She told him that 4 years ago she lost her guardian spirit during the Calamity Queen incident, and that's exactly why the royal family turned its back on her, stripping her of her right to ascend the throne. Claire, a bit suspicious, asked, "What was the real reason you came to the academy?" Fianna replied with a straight face, "To kiss Kamito." Claire was pissed, of course, but Fianna quickly added, more serious, "Actually, I came to win the Blade Dance and regain my honor. And for that I chose you, because only you, the Academy's only male elementalist and the sister of the Calamity Queen, wouldn't mind having someone without a spirit on the team." After that, she looked at Claire and asked if she would accept her in the group. Claire, crossing her arms, answered, "You're my friend now. Then of course I accept." But before anything else, they needed to deal with the problem of the sealed spirit in that place. The mission: find the true spirit temple before Dio got there using the stolen documents. Ellis tried to calm things down, saying the documents were all coded, so Dio wouldn't be able to understand anything. That's when Est revealed, "Actually, I know this place. Before being sealed in the Sword Sanctuary, I used to come here thousands of years ago." Without wasting time, she guided everyone to the entrance of the True Spirit Temple, hidden inside the mines. There she opened a door that led straight to the Spirit Fountain, where the seals of the Elemental Spirit Kings were kept. She even mentioned the Dark Spirit, Ren Ashbel, and that left Kamito suspicious because, let's be honest, that name sounded a lot like his, and like Restia's surname too. He even tried to ask more, but Est deflected. "Now's not the time for that. We need to start the Blade Dance ritual right away." Claire and Fianna began the purification ritual, while Kamito stayed outside on guard. On the other side, Dio, on the way, ran into Restia herself and started pouring out all his hate. "This is all your fault, you failure. My spirit was weak." Restia, out of patience, shot back, "Weak is you, who's getting beaten by the true successor of the Demon King, Kamito." But Dio didn't care, and asked her to take him to the true temple to finally defeat Kamito once and for all. Meanwhile, Kamito waited outside the gate, reflecting on everything. "Am I really the Demon King?" he thought. Suddenly, Dio appeared, and the two began trading blows mercilessly. Kamito quickly broke Dio's spirit sword and threw him to the ground, ready to give him a proper beating. But Dio countered using his wind spirit, and the two kept trading barbs, attacks, and provocations Naruto versus Sasuke style. Kamito didn't let it slide and said, You're nothing but a loser. You can only control one real spirit. All the others are throwaway crystals. Dio was furious, pulled out his trump card, a bloodstone with the power of a spirit, which immediately weakened Est and gave him the opening to stab. Thinking he had won, Dio stood there acting all smug, until Kamito, with that grin at the corner of his mouth, said, "My fight was never just against you." At that exact moment, Claire and Fianna appeared, ready to turn Dio's life into a living hell. Claire used her whip to immobilize him, while Fianna activated a blade dance that made all the spirits inside Dio revolt against him, practically pulling his blood out of his body. Defeated, Dio tried to appeal. "All right, I'll tell everything about the military spirit and why I tried to set it free." But guess what? Restia appeared right on time and cut him off. "No need. This was all my idea anyway." She looked at Dio with that disdainful gaze and said, "Pathetic. You couldn't even defeat Kamito in his weakest form. You're a failure." Dio, defensive, replied, "If I had stronger spirits, I would have won." And then Restia smiled. Restia, with that always suspicious tone, had the brilliant, or not so brilliant, idea of letting Dio use his former spirit to face Kamito, all in the hope of forcing him to finally awaken as the true successor of the Demon King. When Kamito saw his former spirit being used by Dio, man, a sadness mixed with absurd anger hit him. Without thinking twice, he charged at him, but Dio didn't hold back and responded with a black lightning bolt, aiming straight at Fianna, who was completely defenseless. Kamito, on reflex, threw himself in front and took the hit in the chest to protect her. Seeing Kamito hurt for her again made Fianna break down in despair. She called her former spirit, begging it to respond to the contract they once had and protect Kamito. At that moment, the spirit, hearing the call, responded immediately and launched a violent counterattack against Dio. Claire, seeing the chance, joined the fight as well, opening space for Kamito to react. Together, they managed to defeat Dio. The next day, Kamito woke up in bed, all beaten up, but with one question hammering in his head. "Why is Restia doing all this?" Fianna answered before he even asked. "Relax, I was just helping you recover your divine energy." It seems that after the fight, they handed Dio over to the military, and with the military spirit sealed again, mission accomplished. A few days later, Kamito woke up thanking the gods that, at least this time, there wasn't a girl jumping on him. As soon as he opened his eyes, little did he know, he went out walking all calm, only to run right into Claire and Fianna together preparing chocolate for what they called generic Valentine's Day. And of course, they were mixing in some suspicious ingredients to make Kamito fall in love with them. That classic low blow disguised as affection. After the antics, Kamito and the team, with Claire and Fianna at the front, went to the next training for the blade dance tournament. Claire, full of confidence, took the lead. "I'll take care of the three girls in front. Kamito, you and Fianna deal with the two hiding in the forest." In the forest, Kamito ended up falling into an ambush. One of the girls used a musical instrument that unleashed blades of wind, and the other reflected and amplified those attacks with a mirror spirit. He took some damage, but, well, we're talking about the ex-best blade dancer in the world. He drew Est in dagger form, threw it straight at the wind girl, and then immediately finished off the barrier one. After dealing with them, he returned to the main field, where Claire was about to finish off the last one. She dealt with a stone spirit using her whip with ease. But then, one of the girls who had a water spirit managed to capture Fianna, and, man, the spirit started doing some pretty questionable things, like tentacles. But Fianna didn't hold back. She summoned her guardian spirit and wrecked the creature mercilessly. Victory secured. With that training, they rose in the ranking and already began wondering if they would be placed against Ellis's team, which was in third place. But since two girls from her team were still recovering, there was also that fear of having to face the second or first place teams right away. Claire, crossing her arms, commented, "Look, if we can avoid the first place team, better. Their leader is Valyria, the knight known as the supreme fortress of the academy." After that, they ran into Rinslet and spent the rest of the day strolling around the city, which was all decorated for the Valentine's festival. The next day, Kamito found out that, guess what? It was Claire's birthday. And of course, he decided to buy her a gift. He chose a cute kitten necklace after seeing her staring at it in the shop window. Shortly after, Kamito went to help with his tutoring classes. Ellis, a bit shy, asked if he would agree to help her with some private lessons. Kamito agreed, and Ellis, a little embarrassed, thanked him for all the help during the mining city mission. That same day, at the arranged time, they met. And Ellis, out of nowhere, said, "So, come to my room. That's where I study better." Kamito was a bit suspicious, but went. Once there, Ellis asked him to wait on the couch, and when she returned, man, she was dressed as a maid. That's right. "It's a gift," she said, blushing. "You know, I gave you so much trouble these past days." Kamito just looked and immediately thought, this has to be Rinslet's idea, no way. He tried to convince Ellis that she didn't need to do that, and in the end, they agreed she would make him lunch instead, which seemed way more sensible. While eating, Kamito saw a photo of her with Valyria and got curious. Shortly after, unable to resist, he asked. Ellis, seeing his interest, explained, Valyria is my older sister. 3 years ago, she tried to join the Numbers, the elite knights of the kingdom, but lost in the first fight against Ren Ashbel during the Blade Dance. She told him that before that Valyria had been the leader of the Academy's knights, an honorable and just woman. But after the defeat, she became cold, obsessed with power, turned into another person. She sighed and continued, "Tomorrow she comes back here, so I won't be able to invite you to my room again. I want to show her that I am a true leader, and that this insane search for power of hers is wrong." And then, looking at Kamito, she asked hesitantly, Would you join the knights and help me?" Kamito, kind of feeling obliged, replied, "Deal, and I'll want my salary in advance because I need to buy a present for Claire." After that, he went to Claire to tell her what had happened, that he helped Ellis, joined the knights and all. Result, Claire thought he had broken his promise to her. She got angry, kicked him out of the room, literally kicked him, and crying, told him to disappear from her sight. The next day, Kamito started his first day as a knight trying to do well. But Valyria showed up stealing the scene. She destroyed all the other knights with a single attack and formed her own team, Team Valyria, for the Blade Dance. And of course, she wanted to recruit Kamito, but he refused. Valyria laughed and said, "Then, if you get in my way, I'll destroy you and your little friend Ellis too." She left full of herself, leaving that heavy atmosphere in the air. Kamito then went back to night duties, hunting spirit monsters and solving city troubles. During one of these, he ran into Claire. He tried to explain, but she, furious, threw his stuff in his face and stormed off. At that moment, a green-haired girl appeared, approached 2 knights who hated Claire and offered them cursed seals. Then she went to Claire and offered too. But Claire, remembering Kamito, refused immediately. The 2 knights came back already possessed, clearly being controlled. A dark aura began to emanate from them and their spirits. Man, they had been corrupted with dark elements. The beasts started destroying everything. She tried to fight, ran through the city. Meanwhile, Kamito and Ellis heard the explosion. Arriving there, they found one of the cursed spirits destroying everything. They charged, but the beast was too strong to take down in one blow. In the middle of the fight, Kamito saw the spirit going after an innocent child. Without thinking, he threw himself in front to protect her and of course took a nasty hit, getting seriously wounded. Even so, he got up and, together with Ellis, launched a heavy combo. They managed to crack the mirror spirit, but it counterattacked, almost finishing Kamito off. That's when Claire arrived at the right moment, using her whip to hold the creature. Another cursed spirit appeared in the middle of the fight, and chaos broke loose. They went all out, but suddenly an absurd attack fell from the sky, destroying everything in its path. Buildings, spirits, everything. The brutal truth came out. That absurd attack that almost destroyed everything had been launched by Valyria herself. And of course, as always, she didn't miss the chance to humiliate Ellis once again. "Weak. You're still a pathetic knight," she fired, looking at her with disdain. Kamito, already at the limit of his patience, didn't hold back. He clenched his fists, stared at Valyria, and shouted, "Take back what you just said now!" And he charged at her with everything. But man, it was humiliating. With a simple push, Valyria launched Kamito far away as if he were nothing more than a leaf in the wind. The next morning, Kamito woke up all bandaged and wrecked. Soon after, Claire entered the room to see how he was. The atmosphere was tense, but after Kamito explained himself properly, they made up. And, to make it better, he gave her the birthday present he had bought, the kitten necklace she had been staring at in the shop window. Claire blushed instantly, not knowing where to look. "Sorry, I was too harsh on you," she said, eyes on the floor. At that exact moment, Fiona entered the room with her usual lively attitude and dropped the bomb. "Guys, hot news! Tomorrow we'll have a blade dance match against Valyria's team." Kamito, taking a deep breath, said, "All right, then we'll need to come up with a way to deal with her long-range defenses or it's over." Fiona, in optimistic mode, replied, "Relax, we'll figure something out. But hey, no way, you're not entering this fight all patched up like that." Suddenly, Rinslet entered the room with that confident look and said straight out, "I have a strategy to break Valyria's defense from afar." Kamito immediately took the chance to make the official invitation. "Then welcome to our team." Meanwhile, Claire went to Ellis and invited her too. "Join us in Team Scarlet." Ellis, all honorable, refused at first. I fight alongside my knights." But then her friends, who were still injured, came into the room and told her the truth. "Ellis, we won't recover in time for the tournament. Go, join them and fulfill your dream." And that's how Team Scarlet was finally completed, ready for the Blade Dance tournament and to face none other than Valyria. On the other hand, we discover that Valyria was indeed involved with that mysterious green-haired merchant who called herself a researcher. And yes, she was also using her cursed seals. Only good things, right? The next day, everyone at the academy gathered around the astral portal to watch the battle between Valyria's team and Team Scarlet. As soon as they arrived in Astral Zero, Claire already gave the orders. But Valyria showed up all smug and said, "No need to look for who's going to finish you, it's me." And without wasting time, she pointed her giant weapons at them. Her spirit, Dreadnought, was a type of mecha armor full of insane abilities and with practically impenetrable defense. She started firing everywhere, but Rinslet, wonderful as always, deflected every shot with her arrows. Not only that, she began aiming at the armor's joints, shooting several ice arrows and boom, froze the whole mecha, locking it completely. That opened the perfect gap for Claire, Kamito, and Fianna to charge a monstrous combined attack that sent Valyria straight to the ground. But of course, Valyria got up laughing, dusted herself off, and said, "Nice, but now the fun is over." She revealed that her spirit was of the earth type. And guess what? On the ground, she was simply unstoppable. "This is my turf!" she shouted, charging like a war tank. But Fianna didn't back down. She summoned her guardian spirit and held her off. When Valyria tried to aim her weapons, Claire was faster, lashed her flaming whip, and pushed her back. Ellis followed, summoning a tornado of fire that forced Valyria to retreat. But Valyria, insane, screamed, "All this is useless against me," and unleashed a rain of devastating attacks, enough to even take down Fianna's guardian spirit. The situation seemed desperate. You could feel they were about to lose. But Claire, at the peak of her talk no jutsu, lifted everyone's morale by shouting, "Come on, guys! We didn't get this far to give up now." She charged alone, sent Scarlet, her fire spirit, to distract Valyria while she began overheating her armor, using fire magic to nearly melt the mecha. Valyria, mocking as always, laughed. "Seriously? What a stupid attack. That won't work." But then Claire pulled back, smiling. And it was at that exact moment that Rinslet fired a freezing arrow at the same overheated spot. And you already know, right? Hot plus cold, Aru crack for sure. The heating and rapid cooling magic broke the iron and caused massive damage to the spirit. With that, Ellis finished the job by unleashing a wind tornado, and they managed to defeat Valyria, destroying her armor. Ellis ran to her sister to see if she was okay, but then she got up completely out of her mind, like the other cursed mark users. A dark aura began to emanate from her, and she attacked everyone around, even her own allies. She captured everyone and was about to land a fatal blow on Ellis, but Kamito stepped in and cut off her spiritual arm, saving the knight. After that, he activated full edgy Sasuke mode and went around destroying all the dark aura arms, saving his companions. Without wasting time, he charged at Valyria with a ridiculous sequence of attacks, surprising even those just watching. During the fight, Valyria saw an opening when Kamito stopped because of his wound's pain. She prepared to launch a spirit spear, but Fianna activated full Vegeta mode and shared her power with Kamito, healing him with her energy. Kamito dodged her attacks and counterattacked. Ellis, Claire, and Rinslet decided to join the battle, and with well-synchronized teamwork, they managed to defeat Valyria. Kamito pierced her spirit right in the center, destroying the cursed seal in her heart and bringing the warrior back to normal. With that, Team Scarlet won the battle and secured their spot in the Blade Dance, representing the Academy. Meanwhile, a green-haired girl who also carried a cursed seal watched everything from afar. She commented that they had broken her toy, and that next time, she wanted to play with Kamito. She saw the seals on the two knights who had appeared earlier and recognized the patterns. They were the same ones she herself had created back when she was a student. Angry that they had messed with her precious students, she turned the girl into lifeless sashimi. As she turned, she felt Restia's presence and realized it had been her who caused all of this. Restia replied, saying she wouldn't let her use Kamito for her plans, and vanished right after. Meanwhile, our heroes celebrated the victory and Valyria was taken to recover. It looked like she would be 100%, thanks to Fianna's power to break curses. After a cute celebration with the team, everyone got ready for the long-awaited Blade Dance tournament. The final scene shows all the participants lined up on the day of the event, boarding a floating island in Astral Zero aboard a magic ship. And so, the anime comes to an end. If you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe with the bell on so you don't miss any more videos.